What is up, Watch fam? I am Christian from Theo and Harris.
And I'm John from the Kavalier.
And today, we're going to be talking about Shinola. We actually went to a store, well, Anna went to the store in Soho, picked up like $3,000 in watches. So John and I could take a look at them and really give you guys some insight into whether or not they're worth buying. So let's get into it, John. First, a wristwatch check. What are you wearing?
This is my Seamaster Professional, the 007 Commander's Edition from 2017. This was like the first nice watch that I bought. And I wear it every day. It's my beater watch, essentially.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
That watch, obviously the Pepsi bezel, right, that blue and red, reminds me of the GMT. Remember, John made an amazing video on a Rolex GMT that we loaned him for a little while. The link to that video will be down in the description. It was super cool, really good shots. Did you do that alone, or did you have a photographer with you?
No, I had to have a guy.
That's cool. He has an Anna as well. I am wearing a Rolex HS, reference 1601, my personal watch. If you'd like to listen to the full story about this watch, the link is also in the description. So John, I invited you on the channel to discuss Shinola because Shinola is this American company. Shinola is very famous, probably one of the more famous modern American micro brands for being American. That's their thing. That's why they're popular, basically.
Detroit.
Detroit. It's not their innovation. It's not, in many ways, it's not their design that's winning awards. It's the fact that they are a Detroit brand, an American brand. And I know that you are a huge student of and advocate for American brands.
Yeah.
That's why I brought you on. I want your insight from that point of view. So let's open these watches up and take a look.
This actually isn't my first run-in with Shinola, because my father-in-law, we bought one for him 3 years ago. Whenever we wanted to like get him a gift,
yeah.
And my brother-in-law led that one.
Did you do due diligence before that or no?
That was pre like channel. That was earlier in this stage, but now I've learned a lot. He still wears it, but he's actually had the battery replaced 3 times in 3 years.
That's actually very, very poor. All right, so you got the Runwell, which is priced at $1150, and I got the Monster, which is $1450. That's a considerable amount of money. A lot of the micro brands that we've dealt with are priced in that $300 to $700 range.
Yeah.
And frankly, a lot of them bring a lot of value. So I think you're going to have to make a really good watch at $1,100 or $1,400 to impress us. So let's get into it.
Do it.
What is this?
You have the gift set. Huh?
The gift set comes complete with cardboard.
A journey of quartz and steel.
All right, John, first impressions of your Runwell.
It is big. The link bracelet leaves a lot to be desired. With the bezel, I was shocked at how hollow it feels, and the way that the movement runs with the chrono, it's very jumpy, very jittery. So like if you watch the reset here, so like first,
yeah,
it almost seems like an optical illusion the way that's running, but then when you reset it, it's kind of slow, like run back. I guess,
That's kind of funny.
Yeah. Ooh, that bezel action is like, yuck.
I don't really like the color combination. Is that like a brown or a black or a copper color, and then this kind of rose bezel?
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan. I suppose, as far as color combinations are concerned and configurations, that is up to you and up to your taste. We'll comment definitely more on overall quality. That's something that we can bring more insight to. I'm not all that impressed with my Monster. It's a $1,450 watch. Frankly, this is the gift set version, and I have seen better packaging from, I think, all micro brands that we've worked with. That's just me being frank. We've had better packaging from Martinero, Charlie Paris, Marnot. That's just to name a few.
Claire Loose, which is like a Swiss-made micro brand, they come in at like $400 in the packaging.
Much nicer, right?
Yeah.
I think packaging is big, especially if you're buying it. It's a watch you're manufacturing, so at scale, I think it's just smart to invest in better packaging. There's a lot of styrofoam going on here, and this is just this metal thing. I really don't care for it at all. Again, the only reason why I'm nitpicking, and I'm usually not a big packaging guy, is because the price is so high. I mean, you're talking about the micro brands that I'm referencing before. They come in at basically a third third the price. $400 to $600, and this is $1,500. So you would expect basically 3 times better everything. So powering my watch, the monster is the SW200-1. It's a Sellita movement. Shinola is actually very honest about that, which I do like. A lot of brands, they say, oh, it's our XWR caliber, but really that's just a nickname for a generic movement, which by no means is a bad movement. It's used by a lot of brands, Oris most famously, but really at $1,500, which is fairly on par for that movement and its comps, I think it's a lesser watch. This just seems to be like a altered Submariner.
Yeah.
Right? It's just a Rolex sub with a couple of cosmetic changes.
Yeah. With a near presidential bracelet.
Exactly right. So I don't know, nothing necessarily unique going on. And the same thing even goes for Oris. They actually added a complication to this movement in a large date hand and delivered it at only like an extra $150. So it's not really mechanically too much value.
Well, and just looking at the chrono here, it has 3 subdials. You get your seconds, and then you see this is like a 24-hour. I'm not even sure.
Is it 24? It looks like a 24-hour, right?
No, well, there's a 30, 10, 3, 6, 12.
Hours make sense.
Yeah.
Or is it dual time?
Is that what it is?
Okay, so this is obviously problematic. I can't decide whether this movement works or not yet. I believe it's not functioning. It's resetting to the same spot, which is not 00 on the minute and hour counter, meaning measuring an elapsed time over 60 seconds. We cannot figure it out, but even if it is functioning, which I hope that we'll be able to figure out, it's still incredibly confusing. Shinola is not to blame for developing a confusing movement, but they're to blame certainly for, 1, using a very confusing movement, and 2, not taking on the burden to explain the functionality of a $1,200 watch.
We tried.
We're literally reading the manual.
Yeah. Credit where it's due. There are indices on the subdial. I think that's the most insane thing to me about some micro brands.
You can't even read it.
There's no indices on there. And then there is it's like sapphire crystal. It's very close, I'd say. But it's like, you talk about Oris. I feel like Oris, way more value at the same price.
100%. This is. I don't like this watch. I think it's too big. I don't think it's very handsome. But as far as from a quality perspective, this is, to me, an underwhelming $500 micro brand. That's it. For which you can buy any other micro brand, like I said before, and have a less confusing, in my opinion, better looking watch. The premium here is in the marketing, which is fine. I understand that there are costs associated with marketing, and they need to charge a premium for that.
It's interesting that the Runwell in a quartz is almost more than the automatic if it weren't for the gift box and everything. The Runwell.
And it's again a very underwhelming gift box. Seriously, everyone look at it. I don't think I've ever had packing material so underwhelming.
They also make a very expensive bike. A very expensive turntable.
I've seen in their store the other things they have. Things actually seem a little bit nicer than their watches. Expensive, but still nicer. So those are the watches themselves. We didn't pick the cheap ones. We got the nice ones. We're underwhelmed. Let's talk about the brand for a second. Shinola has become famous for their made in Detroit marketing. There is some truth to it. The watches are assembled in Detroit. There was a bit of a problem with the brand speak on that. The FTC actually stepped in 2016 and strongly suggested they revise some of their marketing copy because it was deceptive. Because the watches themselves aren't just American; they're made of Swiss and even Japanese parts. So that naturally poses a problem. Many people, at least I think, did buy Shinola because they thought it was American.
My brother-in-law did, and I remember thinking, I was like, oh, cool, it's Swiss stuff, but it's made in America. That's really cool. And then that's when the FTC slapped them in 2016.
Right. So people did buy them. I think till this day, I think that one of the big marketing pushes behind Shinola is this is an American brand. I want to support Detroit. I want to support a struggling city, which in a way I think is being done.
Yeah.
They do have an assembly factory in Detroit.
Yeah, they employ people there, but it's very different than somebody like Weiss Watches, who are making every piece of the movement in their workshop in LA, and then Cameron Weiss is putting these things together. Right. It's very different. But Weiss doesn't have the marketing spend, or really there's a lot of stuff that was going into Shinola to make them seem much more of that sort of thing. They got the story out, whereas Weiss watches is kind of a niche, a very niche thing.
And how about breaking away from watches, other brands? You're a big Made in America guy on your channel. Talk to me about that. I mean, how important is it to you that something is made in America? And two, are there examples of brands that you think actually do that tagline justice?
Yeah, well, I think any good product can come from anywhere in the world. I think it's cool though, and it's very like nationalistic to say this comes from somebody that either like lives near me, this is a local craftsman, or somebody that is in Detroit, something that still feels local. And I think there's a lot of pride. I saw this in Switzerland a lot, is like people, the Swiss people, they love toys made in Switzerland, they love, watches obviously come from Switzerland, but even in the US, it's like, it feels good to buy Allen Edmonds shoes if they're made in the US, craftspeople are in the US, if they're sourcing their leather from like Horween's tannery, that sort of thing. And Allen Edmonds has kind of moved away from that though, and they get some heat online for that. It's like some of their sneakers are made in Portugal, and then they have boat shoes that are made in the Dominican, but they have to compete on a global scale with brands that have outsourced
everything. Yeah. I think it's very important. I'd love to see a true rebirth of American watchmaking. Now, I do give Shinola credit. It is still an American company, and I really want to give them all the leeway possible. But then you've got this piece of marketing material that I found in my box. Ready? It reads, Shinola was conceived with the belief that products should be well made and built to last. We stand for skill at scale, the preservation of craft, and the beauty of industry. I don't really know what that second half means, right? I get that Shinola was conceived with the belief that products should be made well and built to last. I get that, right? I mean, if these watches are in fact, built to last, which they seem to be, like watches that you can service easily, watches that you can have in 20 years in theory, if properly taken care of, but skill at scale. I don't know what skill they're referring to. Is it their marketing skill? For real, I'm not even being nasty. These watches I don't think they're necessarily good representations of skill or craftsmanship in watchmaking.
If there was, I would like to see more about maybe the programs that they have in place to educate and train their employees. Like if it's skill of building, if it's the bicycles or if it's the watches, like talk about the fact that you're educating people in Detroit and giving them that sort of skill, because it's funny coming from Detroit, where that's where they eliminated skill with the factory, with the work line. That's Henry Ford got rid of skilled workers to make people press buttons.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. Obviously, it's not black or white. There is a lot of gray here, but I think that if you put everything aside and just look at the products themselves, there are better options. Oh, geez, look at in the middle of the links. The PVD is not finished, so you have like this color. I hate that.
Well, you spotted that.
Yeah, no. There are brands at this price point that are better. I think Oris, with a lot of their dive watches, their big pointer date, they make, I think, better looking watches that took more time to develop, and from a movement perspective, equal quality. If this level of quality is okay with you, and this is what you're looking for, and it's not bad, you can just spend a lot less money and get it. You can get it at, like I said, Notice. You can get it at Martinero. You can get it at Brew.
But that's all new. I mean, a lot of ways, I'd rather have an $800 to $900 vintage Seamaster.
I agree with that completely.
Okay. I know there's a vintage watch channel, but I'd rate right there. I'd rather get something from Omega from the 70s or 80s at a lower price point, have way more heritage. It's probably going to be gold filled at that point versus 12.
That will kind of scratch out. Yeah, I agree with you. Of course, in this channel, vintage is always the center. Vintage is the focus, but we like to give modern a shot. And if someone's doing it well, I want to give them credit. But I gotta say, at $1,200 and at $1,500, I'm just not impressed, guys. I'm sorry. Sorry, Shinola.
Yeah, most of the watch world doesn't seem to be either.
No, yeah, not at all. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this episode. I hope that we informed you before you went out and bought a Shinola. Again, it's not a bad thing. It's not a dirty word, but I'd like you to be educated and to know what it is you're buying and understand the market a little bit better. If you like this video, if you love watches, please give us a big old like and subscribe to our channel, and give John a look at the Kavalier.
I also have a whole directory of American-made brands just launched, and so there are watches in there, but shoes, belts, everything in between in fashion.
American-made. John's a big American-made guy. That's it, guys. Thanks so much. it sounds fine. Mine is pretty good.
Sounds
John?
like a toy.
I mean, that's abrupt.
Yeah.
It's to the point where you wouldn't want to do it in public.